whether what the style is like in this these weekly Zoom seminars or meetings, discussions, but because I actually enrolled late, so I missed out the first week. So I just want to, because there's a lot of information on the subject Canvas page, and I'm just wondering whether it seems to be quite intensive, this subject. Like this, I just realized that there's an assignment. The first assessment due is on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just a bit of background, but my question is really, if I miss out the first week, is the way to catch up just going through the announcement on Canvas page?
Yeah, so I think we'll get underway with the reading proper now. But yes, I was going to just do a bit of a review of what's expected, etc. So yeah, the way to catch up is look at the stuff on Zoom, sorry, on the Canvas page, and look at week 1 activities, catch up on week 1. Week 1 really was about setting up your e-portfolio, setting up the what I call the ecology of resources, the tools that we're using throughout the course, and just starting to build a bit of a community and getting used to sharing. So that was kind of week 1. Week 2, which we're just starting now, is really starting to look more into a few background concepts for design of online learning around what is an ecology of resources, what's an appropriate one for your teaching and learning context. And we've got a few readings there. I wanted to go over the assignments and how to actually submit for assignment 1 as well, because it might not be obvious. So yeah, let's do a bit of an overview of the course to get started. And as we're going along, I'd like it to be a discussion. So feel free to jump in, ask questions, and or make comments. And because I'd really like us to basically establish a community. So it's not just about me. And I certainly don't want it to be about just a delivery of content. Hopefully we're actually modeling an approach to online learning that you can use in your own context. So I'm going to jump into screen sharing. I'm going to jump out of the TARDIS here, and we'll have a look at the overview of the course, quick look over what was week 1, and then we'll look at the assignments, we'll look at week 2, and just have a discussion and go from there. So going into screen sharing. Right. Okay, so hopefully you can all see my screen, which has the Canvas page there. Give me a quick nod if you can. Good, thank you. Excellent. So this is the Canvas page, and obviously I'm in teacher mode, so it looks slightly different to what it does for you as a student. If I flick over to what it looks like on, for example, the iPad, I quite like the view, the way it looks on an iPad, and this is the student view on the iPad. So there's 2 apps. If you haven't downloaded them, if you've got an iPad or an Android tablet or a smartphone, iPhone, or an Android phone, you can download the Canvas app to your phone as well. And just becomes a quick way of looking at the course, getting notifications. They pop up on your device rather than just an email into your email box. And you can be working on your assignments or discussions or whatever on the go. So it just gives you a bit of flexibility. But I do like the actual look of the Canvas app, particularly in comparison to the Blackboard app or the Moodle app, which are pretty rubbish. The Canvas one, mobile app's actually really quite nice. So this is the course rendered on the mobile app. I'll just go into full screen mode so it looks slightly better. And once again on the app, there's a little double arrow there you can sort of see. If you click on that, it just hides the side menu and makes it fill the whole screen. So you can see the Google map. which about 7 people have put themselves on the map so far. So really the idea of the Google map is to give some sort of geographical feel for where people are from, bit of context. Obviously, most of you as students in the course are probably lecturers at Melbourne University, so you're probably mostly based in Melbourne currently. But it's just really nice that people have put links to their hometowns. Gives us a bit of an idea of sort of the international context of where people's backgrounds are from, which I think is really nice. So if you haven't added yourself to the map, I'd encourage you to do that. I have sent an invite to everyone via your Canvas emails. You may need to send me your Gmail email it to me if you log into Google via a different email than the one you put on your student one for Canvas. So we'll come back to it later. Anyway, so the other stuff we've got here, there's a link to the subject overview and the modules. I'll come back to those, and also I've embedded a Twitter feed, because the other thing I'd like to encourage you to do is to use Twitter. Use it as an asynchronous tool. It's a short form, obviously, but just get into that mode of perhaps sharing ideas very quickly. And I really enjoy using Twitter. For me, it's a great way of filtering information by the people I follow or the hashtags that I follow. And you can see the Twitter feed coming through there. And the key with Twitter is following people that are interested in the same sort of things that you are, or the stuff that you're trying to follow, filter information, or using a hashtag. And you can see the hashtag there, which is #EDUC90970, which is basically just the code for the course. So as a bit of a tip, if you haven't used Twitter before, or hashtags in social media, anything that you want to share with the class, rather than having to actually follow everyone in the class, just use that hashtag in your message, in your Twitter feed, or in Instagram photos, or in your YouTube titles on YouTube, etc. Put that hashtag, and then we can filter that information by the hashtag, and I'll show you one way of doing that soon, because that's part of what we're looking at in week 2. So the key with hashtags is making sure you've got a break before and after them, so that search software can recognize that as the hashtag term. So if you ran that straight into the 2 before, then it wouldn't recognize that as a hashtag, or if there was no space between the 0 and the @ it wouldn't recognize that as that specific hashtag. So quickly looking at what's in the course, we've got the announcements. So I'm trying to sort of keep these relatively regular and up to date. If there's anything I find useful that I think you might as well, that's relevant to the course, I'll share it as an announcement, or on Twitter via the hashtag. So there was, for example, the applications came out last week for the Learning and Teaching Initiative grants. So I've just posted that there, which actually might be really relevant for your assignment 2 and 3. If you're working on looking at developing an online course, which is actually the assignment for this course, then the LTI grants are actually around developing courses for online and funding for that. So it might be a really good opportunity to link those two together. The submission dates for the LTI grants are a little bit sooner than your assignments are due, of course. It's the LTI grants are due on the 26th of June, so you'd have to sort of get onto that pretty quick. And there's also a webinar I run on Fridays, and we had a guest there, Lisa Marie Blask, who's from Germany, and she did a guest webinar there, and there's a lot of really nice practical tips on online learning that you might find useful if you want to look at that. So that's the webinar embedded into that announcement. So have a check on the announcements, look at what's been covered, trying to keep you up to date with what's coming up, etc. They should come through to your email. Once again, that's predicated on you checking your email. It's another reason to have the app installed on your device, because announcements will just pop up as they get announced as well. You don't just have to rely upon your email inbox. So the subject overview. This is just a very brief description. The internal learning outcomes. The outline of the assessment. So basically there's 3 assessments for the course. One is basically 4 reflective posts on your e-portfolio, and I've suggested you use WordPress. And I think just to make life easier for everyone, it would be best if everyone uses the same platform rather than a whole lot of different ones. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter so long as the platform you choose has an RSS feed, so we can actually subscribe to it rather than having to manually check, which then becomes a real pain. But if you're looking at setting up an e-portfolio for this first time, I very much recommend WordPress. I think it's a great platform.
Can I ask a question here? Because I'm still having trouble setting up WordPress. I've got a login, but I'm not quite sure what to do next.
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise I can chat with you another time if it's not relevant to anyone else. But
yeah, so what I was thinking was probably coming back there a little bit later and seeing if anyone else could help you with that, and might be a good opportunity for someone who's managed to find their way through it to give you some hints as well.
Cool, thanks.
So just remind me before we finish to go. That was one of the things I wanted to go over, was how to set up your WordPress as well. So it's 4 posts. Well, 4 nominated posts. I mean, I would encourage you to be posting more than that, but you need to nominate 4 posts: 1 at week 2, 1 at week 4, 1 at week 8, and 1 at week 10 to actually get marked. And I'll show you how to submit those shortly. So I did have a question from Helen, I think it was. I'm not sure if Helen is actually Helen here right now.
I am, yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Hi, Tom.
Yeah, hi, Helen. So Helen, well, do you want to just take us through it, Helen? What's your question?
I was just really wondering whether we might be able to extend the submission date for week 2 until week 3. Really just because we've had the change in first semester teaching with the delay of 1 week. So I'm suffering a bit with overlap of heavy assessment and starting this course. So I didn't know whether anyone else is in that position of being very busy at the moment and having trouble starting, having trouble starting. So if it's just me, that's not a problem. But if other people are in this position as well, yeah, it might be a good idea.
Okay, so I'm quite happy to push out due date for your first post and comment. So there's 2 parts to the assignment. One is your own reflective post on what you're experiencing, what you're learning, linking that to the literature, to the theory, so it's informed by scholarship. But the second part of it is actually creating this community of inquiry, and one way of doing that is by commenting and giving peer feedback on other people's posts on their e-portfolios. So there's 2 parts to it, okay? And they're weighted a little bit differently, so I can take you over that. But I'm quite happy to push that out to week 3. You know, looking at where people are at, I think most people still need a fair bit of setup time. What I wouldn't be happy if we then rolled that further. So if we rolled out to next week, then I can push the date out for that. That may also mean that we should then push out week 4 to week 5. And there's a fair gap to the next one at week 8. So, you know, I'd feel happy about that if everyone else does. So what do people think? Do you want to push out week 2 to week 3 and possibly week 4 to week 5 for due post dates or not?
Yes, please.
I'm kind of thinking most people are going to say yes anyway, but I'd like to get some agreement around it.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, Tom.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Lyle. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fair way ahead with the what is it, the WordPress, and it's taken a lot of time. So I think, yeah, people are, yeah, I think we
Okay,
need some
so
time
let's
to
do
set that up. Yeah.
Unless there's anyone who really doesn't want to. I think it sounds to me like the opinion is let's move due date for week 2 to week 3, and let's also move week 4 to 5. So I'll take you quickly through the rubric as well in a moment, but there is a small amount of percentage of marks for on time, so I'll adjust those dates. Okay, so part of the thing with using WordPress is that when you do a post, it gets date stamped by WordPress, so it shows the date and the time that it was posted, and the same for comments. So that's the way of checking that people have posted stuff on time. So you use the technology to make life easier for you. So the next part, assignment 2, is kind of like your draft proposal for the course that you're wanting to develop. So I'd recommend that this is an actual course that you want to work on. It doesn't have to be, it could be completely theoretical, it's up to you, but it just kind of makes sense to me that if you're going to do some work on developing an online course, it might as well be something that you actually are working on, that you're going to teach, whether that's now or next year, up to you. So the second assignment is basically a presentation of your proposal, and really wanting to embed this as a design-based research methodology. So this is kind of like step 2 in your design-based research methodology, where you're developing a prototype. And the first step is the analysis of the intervention, the problem, the issue that you're trying to look at, or the graduate capabilities that you're designing the course for. So you look at the literature that informs your design. Second stage is doing a prototype. The third stage is evaluating that and redesigning. So it's kind of coming into assignment 3. So assignment 3 really is an actual prototype of your course, and it says 2,000 words equivalent. So it gives you a bit of an idea of how much content to put in there. And so assignment 2 is a presentation, and I want you to use Adobe Spark to do that, because I'm really wanting people to go beyond PowerPoint. Okay, let's get you out of your comfort zone a little bit. And if you've done this week's Survey Monkey, you might see that it sort of discusses that issue of PowerPoint really reinforces the teacher-centric pedagogy, and that's really not what we're trying to look at here as far as the ethos of this course goes. So I'd like you to sort of push the boat out perhaps a little bit, think a little bit different, and use a different presentation tool, and that's Adobe Spark. So we can talk about that. Obviously we've got a few weeks before then. And then assignment 3 really is your prototype. And if it's going to be a prototype, once again, I don't want PowerPoint slides of an online course. I want an actual online course. So that could be either presented via Adobe Spark once again. If you decide you actually quite like Adobe Spark as a platform, it could be a WordPress knock-up using WordPress. If you decide you really like WordPress, it could be another. Basically, it has to be an online tool. It could be Evernote. It could be a Canvas playpen. So as staff and students, you will get access to a Canvas playpen site. So if you want to develop it in Canvas, that's fine. Or maybe something like a Google site. I don't really mind, as long as it's online and it's basically a real prototype of a course. And it's pretty much the bare bones. That's the wireframe, which should include things like, as you see in the right-hand side there, the design of activities, the assessment design, a bit of engagement with learning theory, linking to why have you made these decisions in the development of these assessments, etc. You just haven't randomly made them up. What's the link to your graduate capabilities and graduate learning outcomes? And what is the ecology of resources that you're designing as part of this course to facilitate that style of learning? So those are the 3 assignments. You can see I've done a little bit of a timetable below, and this is kind of replicated in different formats and modules as well, but it just gives you a quick snapshot of what we're covering each week and some of the tools. So week 1 was looking at Zoom, Canvas, our Google Map, setting up your WordPress or ePortfolio, starting to curate each other's work using a Flipboard magazine. And Flipboard is a RSS subscription tool. I'll show you that. And it just comes up very graphical and it's great. Twitter. And then this week we're looking more at digital literacies and what is an ecology of resources. There's a SurveyMonkey survey to do. So effectively what I've tried to do each week is set up what Cormier calls triggering events. The idea between the triggering events are that there are activities to get you thinking. There are activities that are hopefully linked to what we're trying to look at each week. So these are kind of like quick snapshot things to do that will then give you an experience that you can hopefully then link that experience, that practice to the theory that we're looking at. So it's a way of trying to link theory and practice. And I don't know about you, but my undergraduate university experience was very much about theory and very little about practice. It wasn't until I actually had my first job that I started seeing the relevance of a lot of the theory that I was taught. So I'd really like us to try to bridge that gap, bridge the gap between theory and practice with your online learning design. And you can sort of see a bit of a breakdown of each of the weeks, and each week there are these little triggering events or activities that are hopefully designed to get you thinking, and will also then, as you see on the right hand side, perhaps filter into your reflective posts on your e-portfolios, hopefully give you some material to work with there. So the module sections really just gives you a more of a detailed outline. There's assessments there, and they're broken down. So because there's 4 posts and 4 comments for assignment 1, I've broken them down individually just to make it a little bit easier, and it makes it easier to submit as well. So each post should be around about 400 words. You need to include multimedia of some sorts. So if you look at the rubric, you'll see there's different categories there. So let's just jump to the rubrics. Okay, I'll have to jump out of there to... They look at a different mode on the student view in the app to what they do. So each of these rubrics gives you an outline of what's expected for each part of the assignment. So I initially put the comment and the post into one rubric, but on reflection, I kind of felt that made it a little bit confusing on how would you submit your comment. And it also, the system, the Canvas submission system only supported one URL per item. So that's why I've split them into 2 items and 2 rubrics. So it means that you can submit you nominate a comment that you've made on someone's ePortfolio post. You just copy the URL from that comment, paste it as the submission for the comment that you're posting, submitting for the assignment. You choose whichever post that you want to nominate for the 4 assignments, obviously the ones that are due by that date, copy the URL and paste it. So if I have a look at the post rubric here, it's broken up into 4 elements. So things like the post is completed, is on time. So that'll obviously be one of the 5 marks out for 5 points for that particular criteria. It's date stamped and it's done on the appropriate week. So I'll change that to week 3 and 5. It needs to be reflective. So there'll be 5 points for the quality of the reflection, how that's applied to your own teaching practice, and implications for online learning design. That's what the course is about. There's some points for the use of multimedia. So it's not just all text, and engaging with these ideas of ecology of resources, etc. And then, of course, we want this to be informed by scholarship, so there needs to be some sort of interaction with literature, and we want to do this the right way. So there'll be points for APA formatting as well. Of course, I know different contexts use different formatting styles, but let's be consistent, use APA 5 or 6, or if you're really up to it, 7, but 5 or 6 is probably fine. I'm not really picky on where the dots and crosses are.
Can I ask a question, Tom?
Yeah.
About the literature? I was just looking last night to do some of the reading from week 1, and I found it difficult to actually get hold of a lot of the readings that you had in the core reading list. I think I only could get one of them, and I put in, like, I was looking in the Melbourne Uni Library, and they don't seem to be listed as journals. Yeah, so I'm just wondering if you had any in readings online or other ways that we can access things if they're not available through our...
Yeah, they should all be available. I'm pretty sure I put the direct DOIs to them all, and if they weren't available via the direct DOI, there's usually copies on ResearchGate, etc., that are freely available.
Can I ask where the readings are?
Where? So there's under modules.
Oh, okay. So not readings online, because there's nothing in there. Right.
No.
Got it. Yeah.
That's
fine.
That's kind of a work in progress. So maybe eventually I'll put them there. But at this point, there's actually a section under the modules.
Okay.
You can see the reading list there.
Yes.
Oops, that was the wrong one. I clicked on.
Okay.
The reading list. There we go. Which looks like an awfully long reading list, but I guess I just wanted to point you in the right direction. So I have tried to put the direct links to these, so they should be available. That's a direct link to the DOI. That's a direct link to ERIC, which is publicly available.
So these are not readings for particular weeks or particular topics?
Yeah, so they do follow, as I say, their week 1.
Okay.
So
yes. Okay. I'm looking at it on my own screen now.
Okay. Yeah, it might be a little bit hard to read the text on screen sharing. And what I've tried to do is point to the ones that I think are the most significant under the core readings, and then there's a whole lot of additional ones. They're all pretty much relevant, but there may be some that are more relevant to your context than others. So choose the ones that pretty much you're interested in and check them out. And there's going to be a whole lot more as well. So if you find something you think is really relevant that you would, rather read, then go for it. And you perhaps reflect on your post why you thought it was more relevant. But I'm certainly not expecting you to read all of these. I guess, because I've been involved in this sort of stuff for years and years. This is kind of my library of, part of a selection of my library of resources that I'm sharing with you. And it's just trying to point you in the right direction. So yeah, when you're interacting with the literature, it could be from these lists. It could be something you've found yourself, and that would be great. Don't feel that you're limited to what I've got here, or that you have to read it all. You certainly don't have to read it all. So good questions. Coming back to the assignments. So yes, I have broken them down, and so if we look at the comment part for the first week, you can see the rubric there, which should be similar to what you see on your screen. So this is I've separated out the post from the comment because they are separate items, and allows you to submit them as a unique URL for each one as well. So you can see submitting as a website URL. So it just comes up with a URL entry when you submit. So the comment basically is peer feedback on someone else's ePortfolio post. And this is why we need to share those ePortfolios, because if you can't find someone else's post to comment on, then you're not going to be able to comment. So it does come back to how do we share these? How do we get access to them? And so I've suggested a few ways of doing that. So there's not just one way of finding each other's work, because what we're doing is we are kind of turning what we're doing on its head a little bit, because it's not about me. It's not about me as the teacher. It's not me providing all the resources. What we're doing with the e-portfolio is it's yours. So the e-portfolio is yours, and for this course, you're giving me access to that and your fellow participants. And what I'm hoping is that e-portfolio can be yours for as long as you like. So I've had my WordPress e-portfolio for 15, 16 years. And it certainly helped me get to various jobs as well. There's other forms of e-portfolios. You know, you've got LinkedIn as a professional one. If you're a graphics design student, you probably use Behance. There's Mahara. There's a whole variety of e-portfolio platforms, but for the purpose of this course, really keen for you to use WordPress. We did talk about last week some of the reasons why. For those who missed it, WordPress basically powers over a third of the internet now, the WordPress software. And the reason I really like WordPress is that they have a free version on WordPress.com. They do, obviously, when you're signing up, push you towards the paid version, but you don't need a paid version. The free one's fine. I've used the free version for 15, 16 years. The only thing you can't do with a free version is completely customize it. If you really wanted to, if you're a nerd and you can get into the CSS or whatever, you can't do that. Or host your video. So what I do with video is I have a YouTube channel, I have a Vimeo channel, I post my videos there, and then I link them or embed them into my WordPress site. And that's completely available to do for free. So I like free, and if your students are like my students, they like free as well. So if I can point them to good free resources, that's all good. So the comments I've suggested should be around about 50 words. So there's enough of a comment there to give some constructive feedback, and it should include some sort of link to appropriate resources or literature as well. So it could be, thanks Lyle, that's a fantastic post. Have you thought about this? And maybe it links to Laurel Lard's conversational model. And here's a link to a reference, something like that. So as an example, so let's have a quick look. I don't know if is Paula online. I didn't see her join earlier, but so here's Paula's WordPress site, and you can see that it's in work in progress. So she hasn't changed the default, welcome yet. It's just the holding text for introduce yourself. But I've put a comment on that, and just as an example, you can see here that by default, WordPress has moderation on for comments. So the reason for that is to stop spam. You're unlikely to get spam when you first set up your WordPress e-portfolio, but when you've had it for a while, and particularly if you're getting a bit of traffic, people are actually interested in what you're writing, then you get crazy people who start trying to spam your site or link to nasty stuff as well. So the only stuff that a non-invited editor of your WordPress portfolio can put onto your portfolio is comments. And by default, they're on moderation. So any comment that comes through, you have to approve as the owner of that WordPress site. So it won't be visible. It's only visible here because I posted that comment and I haven't changed the screen. I haven't updated the screen. So that's basically gone to Paula's WordPress site. She would have got an email notification or a pop-up from the WordPress app on your device saying, Tom Cochran's put a comment on your blog post. Check it out, and there will be a link that says publish this comment or allow this comment. So that won't be publicly available until Paula has approved my comment. So if I come across here to Chelsea's example, you can see I've put a comment in, Chelsea has responded, and these are now public because Chelsea has approved those. So there's my quick comment to Chelsea. So that's another key as well. If you're wanting people to comment on your WordPress posts, then you need to make sure that you leave the tick box that says allow comments on. If you untick that so that comments aren't allowed, then people aren't even going to be able to give you comments. So there's a few sort of things to learn as you go along. Make sure you allow comments, and then check to moderate them as well. So you might have comments that are waiting in moderation, and your fellow participants wanting to get credit for putting that comment there, and if you haven't published them, that's a bit of a pain. Did someone want to make a comment there? Or was that
no, I just have my comments not allowed, so I need to change that.
Okay, yeah. So who was that, Sam? Or someone else?
No, that's Daniel.
Daniel, okay. Oh, okay. I think I did see your blog. Yeah. So that's just some tips. Obviously, allow comments. By default, they'll be under moderation. So I would recommend that you keep that. You can make all comments instantly available in public, but as I say, you can get spam. And to avoid embarrassing yourself, I would say moderate your comments. But in that case, then you need to check your email address you signed up through for WordPress for the notifications, or download the app so you get push notifications when people comment. Is this all making sense to people? Okay, right. So obviously I've shown you 3 examples of people's blogs from the course so far. Paula has done a little bit about herself. Because she's not right here at the moment, then she's not going to get too embarrassed, hopefully. And then she's put a research page. So the thing with your WordPress, and part of the reason I like WordPress, is that you have your blog page, which is your dynamically updated. Whenever you post a blog, it goes to the top and pushes the other ones down. As you can see, these are the default ones. But you can create these, what they call pages. And this is more like traditional website stuff that you only change through editing. So it's kind of like more permanent. And you could, have as many of these different pages as you like. I'd recommend you don't have too many. And once you start having a whole lot, perhaps you want to have a contextual menu so it gets easier to follow. And she's done a page for her research. So this is a great way of highlighting your research. She's put a Twitter widget in there as well. So widgets are like these little interactive blocks that you can put into your WordPress site. And depending on your template, they could be at the top, they could be at the bottom, they could be on the left side, they could be on the right side, they could be 2 columns, 3 columns. You choose your template, how you want it to look, which includes the colors, the header, whether you're able to put in a custom photo at the top or not, is all determined by your template. And there's literally thousands of templates available for free. There are some paid ones. You don't need to pay for any, just choose a free one. And if you decide you don't like the template that you've used, then you can choose a different one at any time. It doesn't change any of the content in your WordPress blogs. Nothing's going to get deleted by changing your template. It's just how it looks, the font style, the color style, etc. Another reason I really like WordPress, it's really easy to customize. And so it's a way of personalizing your e-portfolio. So each of these is your own space, and you've created this. And then what you're doing as part of this course is you are then giving me and the other participants access to that. So we're kind of turning the pedagogy on its head. It's not about a space that I've created as a teacher and then give you access to by you paying your fees. which is never your space because it's always owned by me. What we're doing here is you are creating your own spaces, your own Twitter profile, your own YouTube channel, your own e-portfolio, whatever that may be, and then allowing me and the other participants into that. So we are changing the pedagogy by doing that. Okay, so how do we find all these? So you can see up the top there, there's the Chelsea's URL, Chelsea Hyde psychologist.wordpress.com. So when you're setting up your WordPress blog, you choose a URL, and I've suggested you choose one based on your name. If we look at Paula, she's got Paula DeBarber. My one is Tom Cochran, which is just a shortened version of my name, Thomas Cochran. .wordpress.com. You might find that your name is already taken, so I'm assuming Sam John was already taken because Sam John is Sam John 685388708, which might be slightly hard to remember. But anyway, it's a unique URL. And because, as I said, WordPress basically serves almost a third of the internet, every one of these has to be unique. So there's potentially several thousands or hundreds or millions of Sam Johns already on the internet with their own sites. So you do need to have a unique URL. And with the .wordpress.com, you don't have to pay for that. If you want your own domain, which could be samjohn.org or thomascochran.org, then you have to pay for that domain. That's an added extra, and it's something like $50 a year. I've never bothered. I'm quite happy with tomcochran.wordpress.com. Let me just go there quickly to show you my blog. Not that it's a fantastic example, it's just the one I have. I've had it for a long time. Just to show you examples of a contextual menu. So instead of having 12 different menus across the top, I've got a drop-down menu for each of these subsections for that particular part of my e-portfolio, which is my CMOL portfolio. Okay, so that's the e-portfolio. Hopefully it's kind of answered perhaps some of Jeanette's questions as well, but if not, we'll come back to that again as well. Let's just jump back to how do you submit your assignments. I might need to go to the student view to do that. So here's assignment 1, e-portfolio post, submission, submit assignment. It wants a URL. So how do you do that? Well, you go to your blog. Where's mine? Oh, right at the end. I'd say, okay, that's the post I want to nominate as my marked one. You might have done 10 other posts as well, but you decide, okay, this is the one of the 4 I want to get actually marked for. If you right click on it, control click if you don't have a right click, copy the link, and I won't be able to paste it in that because it's on my, oh actually I might be able to do it. We'll go to the iPad, click on here, go paste, there you go. It has come through. One of the things I really love about Mac and iOS is it lets you do things like that, share, copy and paste between your laptop, desktop, and your iOS device. So then I would, there's the link to my post, directly to that post, not just to my portfolio. I copied the link for that particular post, pasted that in there, click submit. Okay, and that's what you'll get marked on. Let's go back to assignments here for the comment. Exactly the same thing. Click on submission, submit assignment. And once again, the submission is a URL. Go and find a comment that you've made. So if I jump back to, let's see, Chelsea's one where I put a comment. Go and find my comment. There we are. And where's the, I think I have to go back one step. to comments, right click on that, copy the link to that comment, go back to the submission. My keyboard's doing funny things. Paste that comment link. Okay, I think the battery on my keyboard's gone a little bit funny because it's doing weird things, but reconnect it. But hopefully you get the idea. So actually it didn't come through between my laptop and iOS at that stage because it was freaking out. But it should be the link directly to my comment that gets then posted.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I saw you are just copying the link to the comments section to the original post. So there are multiple comments in there. I can't see how that's specifically.
It depends on the template that people have used as to whether there'll be individual links here or not, but it's pretty obvious.
So if that post
based on your name
has 5, if you have posted 2 comments to the same post, what's going to happen?
Well,
So
then you'll probably get 100% for that because you've done more than you need.
Sorry, we were overlapping when we talked here. So what did you just say?
Well, if you're really keen and you do more than one comment and you link to those in the cascaded conversation, then you'll probably get 100% for that comments because you've done more than you need.
Okay, I'm just focusing on the technical part of it. So it's fine. It doesn't matter. It's as long as
you can see each of the comments has a name. So yeah. I know that's my comment. I know that's Chelsea's comment. So it's easy enough for me from that link to tell, if you've submitted it, then I'm looking for your comment, not Chelsea's. That makes sense?
What can I? So when I submit because I need to submit the post, and that is the link, which is pretty clear. But then to submit my comment, I submit the link of someone else's post, so you can go through their comments. No,
you submit your comment, the link to your comment.
The link to your comment on someone else's e-portfolio site.
Yeah.
You submit the link to all comments to someone else's specific post.
No, you're nominating one comment. So each comment will have its own URL. It's just in this case, there's 2 because they were threaded. I can't show you another example at this point because Sam and Paula haven't moderated their comments yet. So I think it'll become pretty clear once you give it a go. But basically, you're submitting a URL, which is a direct link to your post, and you're submitting a direct link to the comment that you want to moderate. So once again, if you do more than one comment, that's great. But you choose the comment that you want to be assigned to that part of the assignment. So how do we find each other's blogs? Well, a couple of ways. One is by putting them into your, once again, if I go on Paula, your profile on Canvas. So if I click on Paula's Canvas profile, you can see she's updated profile with a photo, bit of a bio, and she's put a link to her WordPress e-portfolio there. So I can click on that and then go straight to her WordPress site. Okay, so that's one way to do it. A little bit clunky because it means you've got to go to each person that you're wanting to send a comment to or read. So that's why we're using these other tools, which includes Flipboard. So I have sent you all an email to participate in this Flipboard magazine where we all become co-editors of it, and you can add your WordPress site to this magazine. So you can see so far there's mine, there's Daniel's. I've put a link to my introductory video. Sam's there, Paul is there, and Paul's also linked to her video. So how do you add your WordPress site to here? So let's say do Sam's one. I'm just going to choose the home page link there. Come back to the magazine. I've got too many tabs open. So once you've opened up the Flipboard magazine, which you've been invited to, you can then edit it because you've been added as a co-editor. Click on the little compose icon, just paste the link in there. I could add a comment. I could say Sam's portfolio, and then flip it into the magazine. So you choose the magazine if you've got more than one, and then if I revise that, refresh it, should say 8 stories. There we go, 8 stories. One of the things I like about Flipboard is it gives you stats. So it says 24 viewers, 54 page flips, 45 followers, 8 stories. And there you can see Sam's portfolio is now there. If I click on that in the Flipboard magazine, it takes me straight to his WordPress site. So using this Flipboard magazine RSS subscription tool is a great way of bringing these all together in one place rather than having to jump between everyone's different profiles. Okay. If I once again flick back to my iPad, another reason why I like Flipboard is that it has this fantastic free Flipboard app, which will work on a smartphone or a tablet, but just looks absolutely beautiful on the iPad in particular. And you can subscribe to that shared magazine. There it is there. And if I just basically flick the pages, if I refresh it, we'll see it'll add in the latest one, which is Sam's ePortfolio. It does say that I posted it there, just as an example. Okay, so someone had a question.
Yeah, how many people can you have in one of these Flipboard magazine?
I'm not really sure, actually. I think it's relatively unlimited.
Right.
It'll certainly do the 19 people that are in this course.
Would it do 500 people?
I haven't tried 500, but you could try.
Well, if we were going to, while we learn, I try to imagine whether it will work for my subject.
There's other
and
tools
what application it is, would be used for. So that's why I'm questioning that. Sorry,
as I say, I haven't tried 500. It may work for 500. The thing that with 500 people is that you're going to get lots and lots of pages to look at, so it might not be the best tool to use. You might be better off with a more standard RSS reader, which there's lots of them around, like Feed Reader gives you a free RSS subscription tool, which is much more text-based, and so it just gives you a title and a one-sentence summary. So if you've got 500 blog sites, then I'd probably use something like Feed Reader rather than Flipboard. So there's other subscription tools that will do that for you.
Thank you.
Tom, I'm on the Flipboard site now, and I accepted your invitation, but it sort of doesn't look like I'm an editor or anything like that. I'm logged in. So is there something I'm missing about sort of
you may just need to choose the actual magazine. So when you're in your profile, I think you need to, if you click on the, you've got to be inside the magazine for it to be actually editable. which is...
I think you need to add it as a favorite.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because you can follow,
Yeah,
but that
so,
doesn't do much. But you
yeah,
need to add it as a
I
favorite.
clicked on add favorite and then I put hash educ9970
Yeah,
and
so
couldn't find anything. So
yeah, are you logged in to Flipboard with the same email that was
I
the
would be,
request
yeah.
was? Okay.
Can I just
So
clarify, Tom, the terminology?
No, that's not true. Okay, that's the problem.
it could, yeah, you could be logged in via a different email, and in that
Yes,
case, it wouldn't find your magazine.
Okay, got it.
There was another question there.
Yeah, just terminology. So what's a magazine? Is a magazine the individual, like my WordPress site, or is the magazine the whole?
No, a magazine is a collection. It's a collection of sites.
And so site is a story in the magazine.
Yeah. So when you sign up for Flipboard, which is once again free, you know, I guess that's my theme. Free's best. Well, not necessarily best, but you know, there's a lot you can do for free. The way to curate your own content is that you can subscribe to various default news sites, and Flipboard will sort of push a few towards you. Basically, I untickle those because I want to subscribe to what I want to. These are all various news sites that I'm interested in. But then you can create your own collection as a magazine. And that's what Flipboard calls a magazine. If I go into my own profile, I've got 15 magazines, and each of these is a collection. And each magazine can have a group of people co-editing it or contributing to it. And so what I've done is I've invited you all to the magazine that I started as #EduC90970 as co-editors. And you can see the people who have accepted so far down the bottom, Daniel, Paula, and Sam. And if anyone's done that recently, doesn't look like it yet.
Can you just tell us how we do accept that invitation? Because I'm logged in and I can't see anything. But
you need to look at the email invite that was sent to you, which I would have used the student email from Canvas to invite you. So that'll go into your student mail, and there'll be a link in that email to go directly to this magazine.
So you click on that and you go to the magazine.
Yeah.
Then, if I wanted to paste a page or something,
you'll probably need to sign up for Flipboard using that email address as well.
Yeah. So I've just done that, and I'm now logged in with that email address.
Yep.
So I don't want to make a new magazine. I want to. So this is.
So that should now be in your profile on Flipboard.
Yeah, but it isn't. So I'm doing something wrong. Okay, I'll just have to keep working on it.
can't find
it. So yeah, if you've lost the email or you want me to send the invite via a different email address, just email the address that you want me to send you the invite to. Okay. So that's one way of doing it, and I'd like you all to have a try at doing that, because this will become a fantastic resource, I think, for us all that is co-edited. So I guess the theme I'm trying to sort of get across here is we're trying to model this course as a real community of inquiry, which is about a community. It's not just about me, and so I want you all to become basically active in this community and co-editors of it. And I've obviously set up the ground rules around the ecology of resources, but I mean, you've got to do that or else it could be anything. So let's just move on at this point. And if you do have problems with that, post in the discussion, and maybe someone else can help you, or I can help you. What I have done as well, I've posted a couple of little videos on how to as well. So if there's a specific thing you've got a problem with, I can do a little tutorial video as well, and perhaps show you where in your profile the link is a little bit later, Lyle. So we're kind of going well over time, but I think it's quite important. The other tool that I'm really keen for you to explore is Twitter. So Twitter is more of an asynchronous tool, but you'll find, particularly in education, a lot of people around the world internationally use Twitter to share their practice and share ideas. And there's just a huge international community of people sharing content and ideas via Twitter. So how do you use Twitter for this course? Well, the key is the hashtag. So the hashtag there. We'll search for that in Twitter and then bring that into a feed. So the hashtag is #EDUC90970. And if I do a search for that, which I've already obviously keyed up on this page, because we're using free, there will always be an ad popped in there as well. That's an ad from MuleSoft. Just ignore that. You can see the Twitter feed that's coming through there, which once again is mainly me at this point, but I'm hoping to get a bit more of a conversation beyond me happening here. So basically, because everything we're doing on this course is online, you should be able to basically tweet a link to it as well. So you can link your WordPress site to your Twitter account so that it auto tweets whenever you do a post. And if you put that hashtag into the title of your post on WordPress and you've linked it to your Twitter account, then that'll be searchable via Twitter very easily. So another tool that I use, why use Twitter? Well, there's a whole heap of analysis tools that you can use if you're wanting to find out who's engaging, how are they engaging, and even gamify this with your students. This is a tool, free tool called, created by Martin Hawksey from ALT in the UK. That's the Association for Learning Technology. Nothing to do with the alt-right. He's created this analysis tool, visual analysis tool for Twitter. And what it does is each of these nodes is a Twitter user. The lines down the bottom show you the post, the replies, the mentions, and the retweets. And so if I hover over one of these nodes, if I click on it, it tells you all the tweets that I've sent, the replies to myself, the mentions by other users, etc. And so it's a visual way of seeing the interaction that's happening on Twitter for free. And the other thing we have up the top is we can look at top tweeters, look at top conversationalists, which are not necessarily the top tweeters, because conversation is about actually replying, mentioning. It's not just about broadcast. So companies tend to use Twitter in broadcast mode. And so you can be a top tweeter, you're broadcasting out lots and lots of Twitter messages, but unless you're actually engaging in a conversation in Twitter, and the conversations are indicated by mentioning other Twitter users, then that can be quite different in the analysis between number of tweets and conversationalists. So if I click on a different user here, I can look at Daniel and what he's done. So he tweeted out earlier that he was trying to figure out how to link WordPress to Flipboard. I saw that on Twitter and I created a little video on how to do that and then posted it in the Canvas discussion. Another tool with Tags Explorer is you have this cool little replay tweets. If I click on that, it gives me a little interactive timeline movie of how these tweets and the conversations are developing. You can see the timeline moving down the bottom. Looks a little bit sad at this point because it's mostly me, but I'm kind of hoping we'll get more conversation happening. Then all of a sudden, a few other people join as the course starts, and we start getting a bit of conversation happening. So it's just giving me some, as a lecturer in this course, some tools for analysing who's getting engaged, how, and a way of even gamifying that by sort of tweeting each week. Paula is now the top conversationalist. And Lyle might say, hey, I want to be the top conversationalist. So he starts rapidly tweeting and seeing if he can actually become the top conversationalist. So a couple of other tools that we'll look at, I think next week, ResearchGate for actually creating more of a research profile and a ResearchGate group. I can see I've invited Paula into that. Mendeley to create a group collaborative library of resources. So this will become a shared resource for literature that you think is relevant, that's beyond the list that I've put in Canvas. And those are some of the core tools that we're looking at. So just coming back, I mean, it's a lot of stuff of going over, but the first couple of weeks are pretty heavily loaded to set up and getting things happening to enable this community. And then as you go through the modules, you'll see that becomes less and less, and it's more about you and what you're doing and sharing your work. So as we go through the weeks, you'll see there's a little bit less info driven, more about you sharing. So actually when we come to week 5 and week 6, when we're talking about learning theories and design frameworks, that's actually going to be you. So in week 3, which is next week, I'm going to share a form where you will need to choose either a learning theory or a learning design framework that you'd really like to learn more about and present to the rest of the course participants as a short 8 to 10 minute presentation. And then you've got a couple of weeks to find out about social constructivism or connectivism or cognitive load theory. And basically this will be on a first come first serve basis. So if you decide you really want to talk about connectivism, then stick your name in that table, and I'll share a link to a Google form for you to be able to do that very soon. Once you've created your presentation, also put the link to it there. Okay. So yeah, unfortunately, lots and lots about me talking today. There have been a few questions, which is great. Is there anything that I haven't covered that people desperately want to know at this point?
Yeah, you mentioned in one of the assessment, you mentioned that we need to use Adobe Spark.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have to purchase that software?
No, as I said, I go for free. So it's free download. So it's a free app that you can download to your device, or if you go to the web link, which I've put in the notes, it's free there as well. I'm pretty sure that
it says it's 2 months free subscription.
well, the course only goes for 2 months, so that'll cover you fine.
Okay.
There is a completely free version which you can use, and I'm pretty sure, I mean, that the University of Melbourne will have an enterprise license for the Adobe suite, which will give you an infinite access to all of their tools, including.
Yeah, but I don't think it covers Spark, because I get a message saying that, you know, contact your IT person to get access. If I try to log in with a Unimail address.
Yeah, I've also checked. It's not on the software, a list of software that's available.
Okay. So in that case, just use the free version, download the app. The app's free, and it'll cover you for the link for the course. But I'm sure if you did email IT from Uni Melbourne, they'd probably add it to its list. It's a great tool.
Just to take a break from fiddling with Flipboard for a moment, you earlier showed a Twitter feed in that thing that had the green. You were accessing the subject website on Canvas from a tablet or another platform.
Yes. Okay. So yes, if we go to home and you scroll down, I've embedded a Twitter feed there.
There they are. Yeah. So they were your tweets, not the sort of EDUC 90970.
That's right, because unfortunately Twitter have changed their widgets. You used to be able to do a widget via a hashtag.
That would be a relatively obvious thing to do. Okay.
Yes, but for some reason they've decided, no, you can't do that anymore. So the only widget you can have is a user's feed.
Right, okay.
So that's all of my Twitter messages. Which, you know, hopefully you might find some of the other ones useful and relevant as well, but you will find the occasional one about pizza and coffee. Just off the screen at the moment, anyway. So yes, that's the limitation of the Twitter widget.
How do you add a widget, Tom?
To your own portfolio?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me jump to mine. So I'm in my site, and it shows that I'm logged in. So it's got my profile at the top there, which Twitter uses, WordPress links to Gravatar, which is kind of like it's kind of like a universal profile, which goes across a whole lot of sites. But yeah, if you set up your Gravatar, then that'll go across other social media as well. So I'm logged in, I'm on my site. If I click on my sites here, it'll give me a list of them. And just make sure you're on the one you're wanting to edit. The reason for that is if I go back here, you can see I've actually got quite a lot of WordPress sites, and every one of those is free. I've never had to pay for a WordPress site. So make sure you're in the what they call the dashboard for the right site, your own site that you're wanting to edit. For most of you, you'll only have one because it's the only one you've set up. It gives you stats, etc. But this is where you customize your WordPress portfolio, including the widgets. So I think if you go into customize, it loads the customizer, and then you can see on the left-hand side there's a menu widget for the widgets. Depending on your theme, the widgets will be in different areas. So the theme that I've chosen allows me to have widgets at the bottom, two different widgets at the bottom, well, 3, and a sidebar ones, and you can see my various widgets there. The little edit button allows me to edit those quickly directly for ones I've already put in or the default ones. If I go to the sidebar ones here, you can see the ones I've already put there, and you click on the add widget that you're wanting to add into that particular area of your page. Here's all the default ones you can choose from. You choose a widget and then you customize it. So it's now added a custom HTML widget into my sidebar, and what I need to do now is give it a title, and I have to copy and paste some HTML in there. So I'd go to say, if I wanted it to be a YouTube embed, I'd go to YouTube, copy the embed code, paste it in there, etc. So that's the quick version. There are lots of tutorial videos that WordPress hosts that you can look at. I am recording this Zoom seminar, so if you want to go back over what I just demonstrated very quickly there and replay it, then you'll be able to do that once I put the video online. Did that answer your question, or at least point in the right direction?
Yeah, in the right direction, thanks.
Okay, cool. So I'm not going to save those changes. If I just go back to view my site. Oh, so that's another tip as well. Someone did share their WordPress link while they were in the editing mode. So if I go back to my sites in editing mode, if you copy and paste that link, it's not going to take me to your site. It's taking me to the editor. Okay, that's not the link you want to share. You want to be viewing your site, which is the public view of your site to share. So yeah, don't get confused between the editing version of your site, which is where you're editing your site, and the public view of your site, which is, click on visit my site. There's the public address. That's what you want to share, not the editing address. Which doesn't matter if you do, it just means that people don't get pointed directly to your site and they just see nothing because they have to log into WordPress to get to the editor, and when they do, they only see their own sites, they can't see yours. Okay, just a tip there. I can't remember who it was, someone posted their editing address. Okay, well, lots to think about, lots to go over, and if we just jump back to modules and what is week 2 cover, which is digital literacies. There are a few triggering activities that I'd like you to do beyond the setup, which we've kind of mainly gone about at this point, but I think it was important. There is a SurveyMonkey survey. It's only 10 questions. I would hope that it would sort of start, getting you thinking about digital literacies and about how they're linked to your own practice as a teacher, and maybe some of the theories that might underpin how you go about teaching. There's an exercise to create a visitor and resident map. So I'll jump down to the sec. There's an exercise to create your own ecology of resources diagram, or at least start one. There's a link to the Tags Explorer analysis that I showed you before for Twitter. And there's a link to the Adobe apps and the mobile apps that you can download, and most of those are free for your device as well. So if you're wanting to create your own content, then some of these Adobe apps are really cool. There's a whole lot of other apps as well, but the Adobe apps are really, really, really well done for editing videos, for sketching, for doing a whole range of design and visual design activities, particularly if you've got a tablet with a pencil. They're really fantastic. So let's just jump down. I'm aware that we're really going over time here, but I think it's important. To the visitor resident map exercise. So there's the survey link. What I'm really wanting to get you to think about is this concept you've probably heard about of the digital native. Any yeses or nos there? Anyone heard of the digital natives? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So basically the idea promulgated by Prensky in the early 2000s, I think it was that these days teenagers and young people are wired biologically different because they're on their devices 24/7 and their brains work faster than ours, and they know how to do everything with technology, and we don't because we're old and our brains are old and tired. Basically a load of rubbish.
He wasn't being serious.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And but really, what he was doing was he was a game developer, and it was a way of advertising his games. And he got to go around the whole world talking about it. He was very popular for a number of years. But anyway, that was basically debunked by a lot of people, and an alternative way of looking at how people engage with technology, not based on their age, but based on where they spend their activity, was proposed by David White from JISC, which is the Visitors and Residents, V&R for short, concept, which is, when you think about it, quite intuitive. Basically, you're either a visitor or a resident to technology based on what do you spend time on. If you spend time on Twitter, you're a resident. You're an expert because you're using it all the time. If you only ever delve into Twitter occasionally, well, you're going to be a visitor and you don't really know your way around. And so you can create what's called a visitor and resident map, and just use this as part of digital literacies exercise. If I come down to, JISC, JISC. It used to stand for Joint Information Society and Computing or something like that, and now it just stands for JISC. A bit like IEEE no longer stands for the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, it just stands for IEEE. Anyway, that's acronyms.
Or backronyms, that's my word of the week. Backronym.
Yeah, okay, that's a cool one.
Because I looked up RSS and it's a backronym.
Right, so there's actually two different definitions of RSS, but we won't get into that. But this idea of doing a visitor resident map. Let's just jump to my example. There's an online form. I've put a link there, which from OCLC, which I can't remember what it stands for either. But they've created this web-based form where you can create a visitor and resident map without having to do anything except using their online form, which is very nice of them. You do need to sign a copyright waiver that they will then use this in their research. But, you know, hey, they're doing this for me for free. I'm quite happy for them to research what I use. That's fine. So this is basically a quick version of my visitor and resident map. These are some of the tools. You might start to recognize the names of some of these. Obviously, I'm a bit of a resident in Flipboard, and so I use this in 2 different modes. I use this personally. So I have a whole lot of feeds that I check, you know, around coffee, etc., that I'm interested in. A whole lot of feeds around educational technology. So that's more the institutional. I use it for curating student blogs. So I've put Flipboard spanning the personal space and the institutional space. So you can see there's 2 axes. There's an axis between visitor and resident, and there's the vertical axis between how do you use these tools personally or institutionally. So it's a great exercise to do with your students and even yourself. You will find that most of your students are residents in the personal domain of Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook, pretty much the ones that I'm not. But they're not using them in a professional mode because they don't have jobs, you know. Well, they're not graduates, they're not in a profession, so why would they use them professionally? They use them socially. They use them to catch up with their friends and organize their parties. And so it actually gives them a visual representation of what tools do they use and how do they use them. Then when you start introducing them to some more professional tools like, say, LinkedIn, they probably don't even have a LinkedIn profile. So for me, I use LinkedIn relatively often, so I've put it sort of in the resident domain, and I use it solely professionally or institutionally. I don't use that socially. Okay, so that's why it's in that domain. We use Instagram because my daughter-in-law sends us photos of our grandchildren doing stupid things. But I don't have my own Instagram, you know, account. Well, I do actually, but I never contribute to it. And Snapchat, you know, so that's in the personal domain for me and visitor. I have a Facebook account, but once again, I only use that to troll my kids to see what they're up to, see when they're doing stupid things or not. So I'm very much a visitor in Facebook, and I only use it for personal use. So for me, philosophically, that's how I want to use Facebook. I've got no interest in using it professionally because you sign up to Facebook, you sign away all your intellectual property to Mark Zuckerberg directly. He can do whatever he likes with it. That's what you're signing your name to when you sign up to Facebook. And the whole ethos of Facebook is you live in Facebook and it doesn't link out to these other sites. So there's my visitors and residents map. And this is a way of debunking that whole digital native theme as well, because once your students do this, you'll see there's a whole lot of tools they don't use, and they certainly don't use professionally. So that gives you the opportunity to go, hey, how about we use Zoom to connect, or ResearchGate to create a research profile, or Twitter because they may not use Twitter, but let's use it professionally in an educational domain, and put some ground rules around it because they're not currently using it. The tools they are using, they use for social, such as Facebook. And that's why I would also say I would stay away from Facebook, because that's their social space. Why would I invade it by a whole lot of educational stuff that they're not interested in there, in that space? You may disagree with me. I know some people do. Some people use Facebook educationally, and that's fine. Generally, it's because everyone has a Facebook account and it's the easy default. It's not necessarily the best tool to use. It's just everyone has an account, so let's use it. I don't really see the logic in that personally. Okay, so that's the VNR exercise, and what I'd like you to do over the next week is to create your own visitor and resident map, save that as an image. You can save it, print it once you've used that online. You could just sketch it on a piece of paper and take a photo of it. I don't mind how you do it, as long as you end up sharing it in the discussion forum. And you might find that's a useful discussion starter as a blog post for your ePortfolio post as well. and gives you a bit of link to some theory. The next thing there is creating ecologies of resources. And this concept was really sort of brought about by Rosemary Lucan in 2008. Learner-centric ecology of resources. And there's some other theory it links into, like authentic learning, etc. And what I'd like you to do, once again, is start creating your own ecology of resources toolkit. What's a group of tools that you could use in your particular learning context that are relevant to your context? And start thinking about a diagram. So I created a Padlet where you could sort of knock up some of those ideas. I've got a Twitter feed to some ideas that are done more a graphical sort of a way. So have a play with those ideas throughout this week while you're starting to set up your portfolios and think about your posts as well. Okay, I'll take a bit of a breather there for any more questions. Maybe I'll get out of screen sharing now.
Okay, so should I be able to post my e-portfolio onto the Flipboard? Should I be able to do that myself?
Yes, yes. Once you're signed into the right account, you will have that magazine as one of your editable magazines in your profile. You can then just copy and paste the URL for your WordPress site into that, and we'll add it as a tile into that magazine.
Okay.
Okay, so other ways to share the link to your WordPress site. If that's not working for you, just paste it into the discussion forum on Canvas, put it into your profile on your Canvas as a link. So there's at least 3 ways for us as a community to find your e-portfolio, because as I say, that's yours. You've created that as a unique address. I've got no idea what it is until you share it with me. So there's 3 methods. Three methods of sharing that. Give the Flipboard one a go, because it's a really nice visual way of doing it. And of course, once again, I've lost my tab. Oh, there's where I wanted to once again just pull your attention to the map, the shared Google map. Let me just refresh it, see if anyone else has added. No, not yet. You should have all got an invite to be co-editors of this map. You can see it is actually publicly available, but only invited people can edit this map. And I'd like you to put a little bit of info on your map point. I've got a photo I've got embedded in my welcome video there as well. I've got a link to my Find an Expert page. Just basic information to give you some context about me. Not enough information that people can troll me on the internet or find where I live. Okay, so it's just giving us a bit of a geographical context of this group of learners. If I would have by default shared this with your student Canvas email address. If that's not working for you, if you have your separate Gmail address, just email it to me, and I'll like Melissa here, I'll invite you via your Gmail address. Another shared activity. Okay. I realized that was a lot to take in. We are covering a lot, and as I said, it's kind of heavily front loaded the first 2 or 3 weeks just to get you up and going so we can create this community, and then it's more about you contributing.
Can I ask one last question about these technologies that we're going to cover in this subject? So is there any privacy aspect of concerns in making use of all these tools?
So what I try to do is point you towards tools that I think have a decent privacy options. You know, that you're not signing up for something that's going to randomly post you nasty stuff via ads, etc. But they are all free tools, apart from Canvas, which is obviously institutional. I'm wanting you to explore beyond Canvas for this course, just give a bit of an idea. We don't have the limitations of GDPR, which Europe has in Australia and New Zealand, but that's certainly an issue for people in Europe as to which tools they choose. Do they align with their general data protection regulations? That's not really such an issue in Australia and New Zealand. But yeah, I'm trying to point you towards an ecology of resources which I think are useful for you and are good choices. The key with anything that's public facing is being wise about what you share. So if you don't want someone to read something, don't post it. That's the bottom line. You know, don't post a photo of a party with all your friends there that don't want to be online. Don't post a photo of your butt, you know, which, you know, for some students they haven't got the hang of. You will find, you know, that students don't have the digital literacy skills to be appropriate in what they post on social media, which is once again why I don't like using Facebook, because you go into Facebook feeds and you see a lot of stuff that perhaps you didn't want to see. So I'm not requiring you to use Facebook for this course. Hope that kind of answers your question, Pauline. So what I'm saying is use these tools professionally, post stuff in a professional manner, post it for the course. And part of that professional manner is when you're engaging with literature in your posts, use APA referencing, etc. So, you know. Yeah,
I'm just thinking like if I adopt some of the things I'm going to learn from this subject, perhaps it would be difficult to actually directly use them for undergrad students. Probably I'll have to send them to one of your subject before they can sort of use these for my subject.
So one of the keys there, Pauline, is survey your students and get them to do that visitor and resident exercise, and you might be surprised which tools they do use, and that will give you a guideline of what you can use with them, what do they know. So I do find that a lot of times people make assumptions around what students know and what they use and what access they have until you actually ask them formally. You don't know. Okay, so yeah, we're exploring new ideas. Hope you find them really useful. I think we'll sign off there for today, and I'll make this recording available so you can watch it online later. Thank you, everyone. Good to see you. Next week we won't go long, hopefully, but I think it was useful and there was some really interesting questions, so thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Tom.